So, I'm going to tell you something that might completely blow your mind. Are you ready for this? Here's a question that changed everything for me. Why do some people seem to navigate through life's toughest challenges with absolute grace, while others, despite being incredibly smart and talented, just struggle? I mean, we've all seen it, right? That person at work who has a lower GPA than you, fewer qualifications, but somehow they're the one getting promoted. Or that friend who just seems to have this magical ability to connect with everyone they meet. What if I told you there's actually a science behind this? The answer isn't what you think it is. It's not about IQ, it's not about luck, and it's definitely not about having the right connections. It's about something called emotional intelligence. And by the time we're done here today, you're going to understand exactly how to master it.
Trust me, this is going to change everything about how you see yourself and how you interact with the world around you.
Chapter 1. Understanding the Foundation. Let me start with a story that'll probably sound familiar. Picture this. You wake up one morning feeling off. You know that feeling, right? Something's bothering you, but you can't quite put your finger on what it is. Maybe it's work stress, maybe it's that conversation you had with your friend yesterday. Whatever it is, it's there. Now, here's where most people go wrong. They just push through it. They ignore those feelings and hope they'll go away on their own. But what if I told you that this moment, this exact moment when you feel that emotional tension, is actually your greatest opportunity for growth? This is what emotional intelligence is all about. It's not just some fancy psychology term. It's literally the difference between reacting to life and responding to it. And trust me, there's a huge difference between the two. So what exactly is emotional intelligence? Well, at its core, it's your ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions. And here's the kicker, the emotions of others too. It's like having this internal GPS system that helps you navigate the complex world of human interactions. You know what's crazy? For decades, we've been obsessed with IQ, thinking that being smart was the key to everything. But here's what the research actually shows. People with average IQs outperform those with higher IQs about 70% of the time. How is that even possible? The answer is emotional intelligence. It's the secret sauce that separates the truly successful from everyone else. And the best part? Unlike IQ, which is pretty much fixed from birth, emotional intelligence can be developed. You can literally get better at it, starting right now. Let me break this down for you. Emotional intelligence has 5 core components, and each one builds on the others like a beautiful symphony. First, there's self-awareness. That's your ability to recognize your emotions as they happen. Then, self-regulation. Learning to manage those emotions instead of letting them control you. Next comes motivation, that internal drive that keeps you going even when things get tough. Then empathy, your superpower for understanding and connecting with others. And finally, social skills, the practical application of everything else in real-world interactions. You know what's beautiful about this? Once you start developing these skills, they begin to reinforce each other. Your self-awareness makes your self-regulation stronger. Your empathy enhances your social skills. It's like, imagine if every part of your emotional life started working together in perfect harmony. Chapter 2. The Power of Self-Awareness. Okay, so let's dive deep into this first pillar, self-awareness. And I want you to really picture this scenario. You're sitting in a meeting at work, and someone says something that just gets under your skin. You feel that familiar surge of frustration bubbling up inside you. Now, most people in this situation, they're already mentally crafting their response, probably something they'll regret later. But someone with strong self-awareness, they pause. They recognize what's happening inside them. They understand that this emotion is information, not instruction. Here's what most people don't realize. Self-awareness isn't just about recognizing that you're angry or happy or sad. It's about understanding the why behind those emotions. It's about noticing your patterns, your triggers, your automatic responses. Think about it this way. How often do you actually stop and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way right now? I mean, really ask, not just brush it off and move on. Because when you start getting curious about your emotions, instead of just experiencing them, that's when the magic happens. Let me share something that completely changed my perspective. I started keeping what I call an emotion journal. Nothing fancy, just a few minutes each day, writing down what I felt and what might have triggered it. And after just a week, I started seeing patterns I'd never noticed before. Like, I realized that I always felt anxious on Sunday evenings. Not because I hate Mondays, but because I felt unprepared for the week ahead. Once I understood that pattern, I could do something about it. I started spending Sunday afternoons planning my week. And suddenly, relieved, those Sunday anxiety attacks disappeared. Curator, want to know the real secret to developing self-awareness? It's not about judging your emotions or trying to change them immediately. It's about becoming a curious observer of your own inner world. It's like, imagine you're a scientist studying the most fascinating subject in the world, yourself. Here's a practical exercise you can try right now. Encouraging. Throughout your day, set little reminders on your phone, not for tasks or appointments, but just to check in with yourself. Ask, how am I feeling right now? What's going on in my body? What thoughts are running through my mind? The more you practice this, the more naturally it'll become. And trust me, once you develop this skill of emotional awareness, it becomes the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about.
Chapter 3. Mastering Self-Regulation. All right, so now that you're becoming more aware of your emotions, what do you do with that awareness? This is where self-regulation comes in. And honestly, this might be the most practical skill you'll ever develop. Let me paint you a picture. You're driving to an important meeting, running a little late, and suddenly someone cuts you off in traffic. Your immediate reaction? Probably anger, right? Your heart rate spikes, your hands tighten on the steering wheel, and you might even say some things your mother wouldn't approve of. But here's what self-regulation looks like in action. You feel that anger rising, but instead of letting it take over, you take a deep breath. You recognize it for what it is, just an emotion, not a command. You choose how to respond rather than just reacting. This is the difference between being emotionally reactive and emotionally responsive. And trust me, this one skill alone can transform your relationships, your career, and honestly, your entire life experience. You know what's fascinating about self-regulation? It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending they don't exist. That actually makes things worse. It's about acknowledging your emotions and then consciously choosing how to express them in a way that serves you and others. Let me share one of the most powerful techniques I've learned. It's called the pause principle. When you feel a strong emotion, especially a negative one, you literally pause. Count to 5. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, how do I want to respond to this situation? That pause, those few seconds, they create space between stimulus and response. And in that space, that's where your power lives. That's where you get to choose who you want to be in that moment. Here's another technique that's absolutely game-changing. Reframing. Instead of thinking, this person is being difficult, you might think, this person is having a difficult day. Instead of, this is impossible, try, this is challenging, but I can figure it out. I remember when I first started practicing this, I was in a heated discussion with a colleague and I could feel myself getting defensive, but I caught myself, took that pause, and instead of getting defensive, I got curious. I asked, help me understand your perspective on this. The entire dynamic shifted. Instead of an argument, we had a productive conversation. Instead of damaging our relationship, we actually strengthened it. That's the power of self-regulation in action. Chapter 4. Igniting your motivation. Now let's talk about something that I think is absolutely crucial. Motivation. But not the kind of motivation you might be thinking of. I'm not talking about those rah-rah, pump-you-up speeches that make you feel good for about 5 minutes and then you're back to scrolling through social media. I'm talking about deep, sustainable, intrinsic motivation. The kind that comes from within and keeps you going even when things get tough. The kind that doesn't depend on external rewards or recognition, but comes from a genuine sense of purpose and meaning. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to have this endless well of energy and drive? They're not necessarily more talented or smarter than everyone else, but they have this fire inside them that just keeps burning. Here's what I've discovered. True motivation isn't about wanting something badly enough. It's about connecting with your deeper why.
It's about understanding not just what you want to achieve, but why it matters to you on a fundamental level. Let me give you an example. Say you want to lose weight. Most people focus on the what. I want to lose 20 pounds. But people with strong emotional intelligence, they dig deeper. They ask, why do I want to lose weight? Is it to feel more confident? To have more energy to play with my kids? To feel better about myself? When you connect with that deeper why, that's when motivation becomes unstoppable. Because it's not just about the goal anymore. It's about who you're becoming in the process of achieving that goal. You know what's interesting? Motivation is actually an emotion. And like all emotions, it can be influenced and strengthened through practice. You can literally train yourself to be more motivated by understanding what drives you at your core. Here's a powerful exercise. Think about a time when you felt incredibly motivated, when you were completely absorbed in something you were working on. What was it about that situation that energized you? Was it the challenge, the creativity, the impact you were having on others? Once you identify those core motivational drivers, you can start designing your life and your goals around them. Instead of forcing yourself to be motivated, you create conditions where motivation naturally emerges.
Chapter 5. Developing Empathy. Okay, now we're getting to something really beautiful. Empathy. And I have to tell you, this might be the most transformative aspect of emotional intelligence. Because when you truly develop empathy, it doesn't just change how you relate to others, it changes how you see the entire world. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly understood by someone? I mean, really understood. Not just heard, but seen and felt on a deep level. How did that make you feel? Probably pretty amazing, right? That's the gift that empathy allows you to give to others. And here's what's beautiful about it. The more you give this gift, the more you receive it back. But let's be clear about what empathy actually is. It's not sympathy, which is feeling sorry for someone. It's not even just understanding someone intellectually. True empathy is the ability to actually feel what another person is feeling, to step into their emotional experience and see the world through their eyes. You know what's fascinating? We're actually hardwired for empathy. We have these things called mirror neurons in our brains that literally mirror the emotions and experiences of others. But in our busy, distracted world, we often don't take the time to really tune into this natural ability. Let me share a story that illustrates this beautifully. I was at a coffee shop the other day, and I overheard a conversation between two friends. One was sharing something really difficult she was going through, and the other friend, instead of trying to fix it or offer advice, she just listened. Really listened. And then she said something that stopped me in my tracks. She said, "That sounds really hard. I can only imagine how exhausting that must be for you." That's it. She didn't try to solve the problem or compare it to her own experiences. She just acknowledged the emotion and validated it. That's empathy in action, and you could see the relief on the first woman's face. Just feeling heard and understood, that was exactly what she needed in that moment. Here's how you can start developing this skill. Next time someone is sharing something with you, resist the urge to immediately respond with your own story or advice. Instead, try to really feel what they're feeling. Ask yourself, if I were in their situation, how would I feel? And here's a little secret. The more you practice empathy, the better you become at understanding your own emotions too. It's like empathy is a muscle that gets stronger every time you use it, and that strength benefits every relationship in your life.
Chapter 6. Mastering Social Skills. All right, now we're going to talk about the practical application of everything we've learned so far. Social skills. This is where emotional intelligence meets the real world, where all that inner work you've been doing gets to shine in your interactions with others. Have you ever met someone who just seems to have this natural ability to connect with people? They walk into a room and somehow everyone feels more comfortable. They can navigate difficult conversations with ease. They seem to know exactly what to say and when to say it. Well, here's the thing. It's not actually natural. What you're seeing is emotional intelligence in action. These people have developed the skills we've been talking about, and they're applying them in their social interactions. Let me break this down for you. Social skills aren't really about being charming or charismatic, though those things can be nice. They're about being emotionally aware in social situations. They're about reading the room, understanding what others are feeling, and responding in a way that creates connection rather than distance. I remember early in my career, I was in a team meeting where tensions were running high. Two colleagues were in a heated disagreement, and you could feel the discomfort in the room. Everyone else was just sitting there, hoping someone else would handle it. But then our team leader did something brilliant. Instead of taking sides or shutting down the conversation, she acknowledged what was happening. She said, "I can see this is an important issue for both of you. Let's take a step back and make sure we're all understanding each other's perspectives." That one intervention changed the entire dynamic. Instead of a destructive argument, we had a productive discussion. Instead of leaving that meeting feeling frustrated, everyone felt heard and respected. That's what strong social skills look like. It's the ability to manage not just your own emotions, but the emotional climate of the entire group. It's about creating safety for others to express themselves authentically. Practical. Here's something you can practice right away. Active listening. Most of us, when someone is talking to us, we're already formulating our response. But active listening means being fully present with the other person, not just hearing their words, but understanding their emotions. Try this. Next time you're in a conversation, focus entirely on understanding the other person. Ask clarifying questions. Reflect back what you're hearing. Notice their body language and tone of voice. You'll be amazed at how this simple shift transforms your interactions.
Chapter 7. Real-world applications.
Now let's get really practical here, because understanding emotional intelligence is one thing, but actually applying it in your daily life, that's where the rubber meets the road. And trust me, once you start applying these principles consistently, you're going to see changes that will absolutely blow your mind. Let me tell you about Sarah, a client of mine who came to me completely frustrated with her career. She was brilliant, hardworking, had all the technical skills, but she kept getting passed over for promotions. She couldn't understand why. As we worked together, it became clear that Sarah had developed amazing technical expertise, but she'd never really focused on the emotional side of her professional relationships. She was so focused on being right that she often came across as dismissive of others' ideas. She was so focused on efficiency that she rarely took time to really connect with her colleagues. But here's what happened when she started applying emotional intelligence principles. First, she began practicing self-awareness in meetings. She noticed when she was getting frustrated and learned to pause before responding. She started really listening to her colleagues' ideas instead of immediately pointing out flaws. Then she worked on empathy. She began asking questions to understand others' perspectives. She started acknowledging good ideas from her teammates. She made an effort to understand the pressures and challenges her colleagues were facing. And the social skills? She learned how to give feedback in a way that felt supportive rather than critical. She started having informal conversations with colleagues, building relationships beyond just work tasks. Within 6 months, Sarah was promoted to team lead. Not because she became more technically skilled, but because she became someone people actually wanted to work with and follow. You know what's beautiful about this? The same principles that transform Sarah's career can transform every area of your life. Your relationships become deeper and more meaningful. Your stress levels decrease because you're not constantly fighting against emotions. You're working with them. Even difficult conversations become opportunities for connection instead of sources of anxiety. Because when you approach others with genuine empathy and emotional awareness, people can feel it. They respond to that authenticity and emotional intelligence in ways that will surprise you.
Chapter 8. Handling difficult situations.
Let's talk about something we all face. Those really challenging situations where emotions are running high and everything feels like it could go sideways at any moment. These are the moments where emotional intelligence isn't just helpful, it's absolutely essential. Think about the last time you were in a really difficult conversation, maybe a conflict with a loved one, a tense situation at work, or even just dealing with a rude customer service representative. How did you handle it? Did you stay calm and focused, or did you find yourself getting reactive? If you're like most people, you probably got caught up in the emotion of the moment, and that's totally normal. But here's what I want you to understand. These challenging situations are actually your greatest opportunities to practice and strengthen your emotional intelligence. Let me share a framework that has been absolutely game-changing for me. I call it the STOP method. When you find yourself in an emotionally charged situation, you stop. Literally pause everything. Take a breath. Observe what's happening both inside you and around you. Then, you proceed with intention rather than reaction. I remember using this during a particularly heated argument with my partner. We were both getting defensive and saying things we didn't really mean. But I caught myself, took that stop moment, and instead of continuing to argue, I said, I can see we're both really upset right now. Can we take a moment to calm down and try to understand what's really going on here? That one pause, that one moment of emotional regulation completely shifted the dynamic. Instead of continuing to hurt each other, we were able to have a real conversation about what we were both feeling and what we actually needed. Here's another technique that's incredibly powerful: emotional labeling. When you're feeling a strong emotion, simply name it. I'm feeling frustrated right now. I can see that you're feeling hurt. This simple act of labeling emotions actually helps regulate them. There's fascinating research that shows when you name an emotion, it activates the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain, and calms down the amygdala, the emotional reactive part. It's like you're literally using your higher brain to manage your emotional brain.
Chapter 9. Building Emotional Resilience. Here's something I think is absolutely crucial to understand. Emotional intelligence isn't just about handling individual situations better. It's about building long-term emotional resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks, adapt to change, and maintain your emotional equilibrium, even when life gets really challenging. You know what I've noticed about people with high emotional intelligence? They don't experience fewer problems than everyone else. They just handle problems differently. They don't get thrown off course by every obstacle or setback because they have these internal resources to draw from. And the beautiful thing is, resilience isn't something you're born with or without. It's something you can develop. Every time you practice self-awareness, every time you regulate your emotions instead of being controlled by them, every time you respond with empathy instead of reactivity, you're building your emotional resilience. Let me tell you about Michael, a guy who went through an incredibly difficult period. He lost his job, went through a divorce, and had some serious health challenges, all within the same year. By any measure, this should have completely derailed him. But Michael had been working on his emotional intelligence for years. Instead of falling into despair or denial, he used his self-awareness to acknowledge how difficult this period was. He used self-regulation to manage his anxiety and depression. He reached out for support instead of isolating himself. Most importantly, he was able to find meaning in his struggles. He started volunteering with others going through similar challenges. He used his experience to develop deeper empathy and connection with others. 2 years later, Michael told me that while he wouldn't wish that difficult period on anyone, it actually led to the most meaningful period of his life. He found a career he was passionate about, rebuilt his relationships on a stronger foundation, and developed a sense of purpose he'd never had before. That's what emotional resilience looks like. It's not about avoiding difficulties. It's about having the emotional resources to not just survive them, but to actually grow through them. Chapter 10. The Ripple Effect.
Now, I want to share something with you that I think is absolutely profound. When you develop emotional intelligence, you don't just change your own life. You create ripple effects that touch everyone around you. You literally become a force for positive change in the world. Think about it. When you interact with someone who is emotionally intelligent, how does it make you feel? Probably more calm, more understood, more valued, right? Well, you have the same impact on others when you show up with emotional intelligence. I was at a grocery store the other day, and I witnessed this beautiful example. There was a long line, people were getting impatient, and the cashier was clearly having a rough day. She was moving slowly and looked stressed. Most people in line were getting frustrated, making comments under their breath. You know how it is. But when it was my turn, I looked at her name tag and said, "Hi Jennifer, how's your day going?" Her whole demeanor changed. She looked up, smiled for the first time since I'd been watching, and said, "It's been really tough, but thank you for asking." We had a brief but genuine conversation, and by the time I left, she seemed lighter, more energized. But here's what was really beautiful. I watched as she interacted with the next customer, and she carried that positive energy forward. She was more patient, more present, more kind. That small moment of emotional intelligence created a ripple effect that touched multiple people. This is what happens when you live with emotional intelligence. You become a source of calm in stressful situations. You become someone people trust and want to be around. You create environments where others feel safe to be authentic and vulnerable. In your family, you model healthy emotional expression for your children. At work, you create a culture of respect and collaboration. In your community, you become someone who brings people together rather than dividing them.
Chapter 11. Sustaining your growth.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, and you might be feeling inspired and ready to transform every aspect of your emotional life. And that's wonderful. But I want to share something really important about sustaining this growth over the long term. Emotional intelligence isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a lifelong journey. There will be days when you handle things beautifully, and there will be days when you fall back into old patterns. And that's not just okay, that's completely normal and expected. The key is to approach your emotional development with the same compassion you'd show a good friend. When you notice you've reacted emotionally, instead of responding thoughtfully, don't beat yourself up about it. Get curious about it. Ask yourself what you can learn from that experience. I recommend creating what I call an emotional intelligence practice. Just like you might have a fitness routine or a meditation practice, having a regular routine for developing emotional intelligence will help you stay on track. This might include daily self-reflection, regular check-ins with trusted friends or mentors, reading about emotional intelligence, or even working with a coach or therapist. The specific activities don't matter as much as the consistency. Here's something I've learned after years of working on this. Your emotional intelligence will be tested most when you're stressed, tired, or dealing with difficult people. Those are exactly the moments when it's hardest to access these skills, but also when they're most important. So I encourage you to practice these skills when things are going well, when you're feeling good, when the stakes are low. Build that emotional muscle when it's easy, so it's available to you when things get challenging. Remember, every person who has ever developed strong emotional intelligence started exactly where you are right now. They weren't born with some special gift. They simply committed to the practice of understanding and managing emotions more effectively. Conclusion: your emotional intelligence journey begins now. So, here we are. We've traveled together through the landscape of emotional intelligence, exploring self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. We've seen how these capabilities can transform your relationships, your career, your resilience, and your overall life experience. But you know what? This is really just the beginning. Everything we've talked about, it's all theoretical until you start applying it in your own life. The real magic happens when you take these concepts and start practicing them in your daily interactions and experiences. I want you to start small. Pick one aspect of emotional intelligence that resonated most with you. Maybe it's developing better self-awareness through daily reflection. Maybe it's practicing the pause before reacting in difficult situations. Maybe it's working on your empathy by really listening to understand others. Whatever you choose, commit to practicing it consistently for the next 30 days. Notice what changes. Pay attention to how others respond to you differently. Observe how you feel about yourself and your relationships. Because here's what I know to be true. When you develop emotional intelligence, you don't just become more successful in the traditional sense. You become more authentically yourself. You create deeper, more meaningful connections with others. You handle life's challenges with greater grace and resilience. You become the kind of person others want to be around, work with, and learn from. You become someone who makes the world a little bit better, just by being in it. The tools are in your hands now. The choice is yours. You can continue living reactively, at the mercy of your emotions and circumstances. Or you can step into your power as an emotionally intelligent human being. Trust me when I say this. The journey of developing emotional intelligence is one of the most rewarding investments you can make in yourself. It pays dividends in every area of your life, every day, for the rest of your life. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Thank you for your commitment to growth and self-improvement. Thank you for being willing to do the inner work that creates outer change. Your emotional intelligence journey starts now. And I can't wait to see the incredible person you become as you develop these life-changing skills. The world needs more emotionally intelligent people, and that includes you. Go out there and make it happen. You've got this.